Okay, and we're back. All right, number nine. Number nine, roll for mastery. And we are going to talk about, I'm not sure what we even call it. Table style. Table style. What happens when players don't make it? They don't show up.
Table etiquette,
Table etiquette, perhaps a little bit of that. Well, maybe. Um,
standard, table standard.
Expectations. I don't know. I'm not really sure.
Table.
I'll think of a title for this video, but that's the general gist of what we're going to talk about. So this would be irrelevant or agnostic to the game that you're playing or the edition that you're playing, whether you're online or in person. It's all going to apply.
Yeah.
So Julie, let's first touch upon different styles or different formats, perhaps is a better word, of gaming tables, right? You can have an open style table, similar to what you run, or at least you did for a while, where it's open to the public. You're playing it in a public space at the local library or at a local game store, and it's open to anyone who walks in. You walk in, you get to play. Maybe there's a physical seat limitation, 5, 6, 10, and you get a seat and you get to play. And it's open to anyone. Others are very close, they're private, they're personal, they're intimate. At someone's house, they got 3 or 4 friends that come over and they play several hours of whatever RPG game that they're going to play. So complete opposite ends of the spectrum, right? So sliding scale, there'll be a few other variations of that in there. Myself, I always try to hand pick my players. As the DM, I try to hand select my players. And there are reasons for that, and I'm not going to get too much on a side note of that, but I try to handpick my players. So I have 2 Discord games I run on Tuesday and Sunday night, and I handpick those players. They were essentially all interviewed by me, and likewise, it counters like they interview me as well during that initial phone conversation to get a feel for how I play and how they play, and if we're going to be a match. And so I try to handpick my players. Now, my in-person game that I'm running currently
Has thrown you a curveball.
it's yeah, so it's I'm learning here, and it's good for me for like personal DM development or growth. That is it was open initially. It's open, so I play the same place Julie does, kind of the open table. Whoever shows up gets to play to a point, right? It's only so many people I can manage,
Yeah.
but you show up, you get to play, and I've ranged anywhere from 4 to 1 to 6. You never know who's going to show up on a given week. You don't.
1v1 D&D
Uh,
still kills me.
and not just who, but in terms of the person, but how many people are going to show up. I don't know.
It's
And as
hard.
the DM, I don't like that because it's not fair to the DM or the players. It's not fair to the DM because if he has 4 characters, then the campaign's designed for 4 to 6. We're okay. But what if
Yeah.
only 2 people show up? Am I supposed to adjust everything on the fly? Or 8 people show up. I have to adjust everything on the fly, right? So how do you handle that? And we're going to talk a little more about that. But so my personal growth as the DM is that I have to be able to adapt, or I have to come up with an answer to that problem. The answer I've developed here over the past month or two of doing
And
this is that I had my initial group of players, which was 4, right? Carrie, Kenna, Artie, and Ross. Those are my initial 4. So we created characters for those 4. Okay. The ladies have left. So I still got 4 characters though. So then I found another player and I said, here's one of the characters from the girls. And
fill in.
what I've learned here over time is now that we have a party size of 6 characters, that's a pretty good, fair, and reasonable party size. So we're rolling with that. So those 6 characters play every week, regardless of how many players we have. If we have 3 players, then every player gets 2 characters that week. I try to keep it consistent. Each player kind of plays the same character week after week after week. Um, so the party has been established. So we play the same party every week, and then the players will change every week, as opposed to varying both the players and the characters. So because if all the players create their own character and half of them don't show up, well, now the party's half the size.
Right.
And then I say, okay, well, normally they have a fighter, magic user, a cleric, a ranger, whatever. And
A
then
balance.
next week the cleric doesn't show up. So now they don't have their medic, right? They don't have their healer. So that creates a problem for the party. Or someone else shows up and has this maxed out paladin or whatever that doesn't quite make sense as to how they came up with all these stats and all this equipment and stuff. It just doesn't add up.
Um,
And I just take that in. So for me, my evolution in this process is 6 characters have been created. Some of them were pre-gens that someone played, but we're sticking with that. We have our 6 characters, and then the players will kind of float or rotate. So that's how I do that. So kind of coming full circle, tying it back to the beginning, there are different types of tables that players and or people DMs can run. Julie's started out with completely open, and over time
completely open.
has developed enough consistency with these 6 to 8 players, 5 to 8 players, consistent enough that she's almost really at a point where it's a closed game. She's still
It's
technically
a
it's
lottery,
it's
is
still
what I like to
open, right?
call it.
It is. It's still, so technically it's still open. It's a lottery, but for the most part, it's the same people that show up every week. A
It's
lottery
first come,
because
first serve.
over time the consistency has gotten very strong, but she's also gained a few more players. So she has a pool of 8 to 12, give or take, and 8 of those 8 to 12 will show
Sit at
up.
the table.
The lottery aspect. So, but I don't think there's too much jockeying for position because someone always can't make it. 1 or 2 people, and other people can.
Yeah,
So,
and that's why I like it. Even though you get a little stressed about, well, what do I do if I have all 12 players all at once? And that's where the lottery portion comes in, is that then, okay, well, it's first come, first serve. If you're at the bottom of the list, you're at the bottom of the list. I love you, goodbye. Um, but I seem to always have some kind of weird scheduling thing happen. And I wish I could have my players are going to have a character NPC that they get to play with. James has kind of took an Irina's character sheet, and he's going to pilot Irina, which is one of the characters. It's a mission they're on. They're getting this girl from one place to another place, and they have to keep her alive. Um, so James has taken her character sheet. She doesn't really do much. She's a pretty low level. She has a noble stat block, so she's pretty low level. She has like 8 hit points. She's like a level 1 player with a level 4 party. But comma, the the thing with so Peyton didn't show up last week, but Rachel did. So Rachel hasn't been here for 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, and Peyton's not here. She had to go to a personal function. So Rachel got to sit in at the table and we had to fill in all of the missing information for her, which I wish we had, kind of like what Rustin does on our Tuesday sessions, where I had a little compendium of somebody who just jots everything down. A subcategory in my subcategory would be cool, where it'd be like session transcripts. But I'm already a subcategory in a category, so I don't think I can have a subcategory because that would be
no, but what you could do, okay, so the question ultimately that Julie's asking is, what do we do when someone comes to play and there's a seat available, but it hasn't
and
played
they're a
in,
good
in, in
player
weeks or months, and
and you like them and
this
you're not trying to
campaign's
kick
been
them
going
out.
on, right? Right, and so you're going to welcome them in because they played with the group before, but for whatever reason they've been absent for some time. The campaign's gotten underway, and they are now coming in fresh or returning after an absence, and they don't know what the hell's going on. So what do you do, right? So you got to bring them up to speed, or as best you
Yeah, and
can.
I'd give her like a really fast like spark note, like a really fast little spark note. I get there a little late. Session starts at 7:30. Sometimes I'm there at like 7:35, but most of the party get there at like 6:30. 6. And they're sitting there for an hour and a half doing fuck all, and I assume they're just talking. But a lot of the times I'll show up and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, we already told so and so what happened last week." I'm like, "Oh, cool. Then we can just start the session." And they're like,
So
"Yeah." And I'm like, "Great. I love this."
And what you're referring to with Rustin on Tuesday night, he is our official note taker for the game, for our game.
Yeah.
We have a note taker, we have a map maker, which is Julie, which our map, my online map makers don't need to make maps because I visually show them, so they can just take a screenshot or what have you. But and we have an accountant slash treasurer, right? And Felicia is our backup um, note taker.
Oh,
So
just in case he misses anything.
there have been roles assigned to players, but we have a note taker. So at the end of the session, Rustin takes notes throughout the session, and a day or two before the next game session, he puts all those notes on Discord for everyone to review, to kind of rehash. In person, I think though, Julie, that you could still have a note taker or two. As big
Yeah.
as your group is, I'd probably say two, because someone's going to forget stuff, and you have enough people for two, right? And then collaboratively come into the next session. Hey, Chase, Jules, you're the note takers. Can you rehash for
What
everyone
happened?
what happened last session? And so that way, if someone's absent for a session, they're quickly brought up to speed. And it serves as a refresher or reminder for all those who are there that may have forgotten something or may have missed that little thing because they weren't
Mhm.
paying attention. And someone took note of it. Their character perhaps would have noticed, but the player wasn't paying attention and forgot. So I think that could be helpful. But
I
what if they're out for
I
weeks or
let
months?
Oh, I know. I let we get pizza on Fridays, and so usually I let the players go get pizza first, and then I will go and get it like after them. I try not to go at the same time, but sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. That would be a great opportunity as well, where like everybody went and got pizza. Okay, you guys are sitting down eating pizza. Okay, hash out what happened last week. Okay, I'll be right back. Um, because it gets there pretty early, to tell you the truth, early in the session, that I could go and get my drink, get my pizza, say hi to everybody, whatever, pop in at your table, wiggle my fingers at the baby, and then go back, and then everybody's filled in.
All right, but what if someone's out for a week, like months, 2 months, and they come back? So
Oh, I
they
know.
missed
I wish
eight
I
consecutive
had.
sessions.
I had one where I posted all of it, and I was the note taker.
Hmm.
Um, but I did it for somebody for a reason because I can't remember why I did it, but I did
I
it.
think it was Peyton, I think, but I don't remember why. There was a reason. I do remember as well there being a reason. I don't remember what it was.
Because you were like, "Why did you do that?" And
Yeah.
I was like, "Well, I can't remember what it was, but I did it." Um, I guess I could have asked somebody else to do it, and I still can. And I feel like I probably should if it's going to happen again, because my two most inconsistent players, Peyton has a full plate. She's very, she's in school and all that fun jazz. And then Rachel's just sadly inconsistent in general. It's just who she is. I guess if her plate gets too full, she gets stressed. She had a lot going on. She had somebody pass away. She hurt her foot. She had to quit her job. She moved. So like a lot of things happened to her all at once. And so she was just like, I'm staying at home, y'all. And we were all okay with it. But now she's back and I had to give her a really quick spark note. And I feel like she didn't get a lot of information. I'm gonna have to keep filling her in.
So
And maybe
what
I
if you
should
came up
ask
with a
my
template?
players
If you came up with a template for your note takers, you came up with a template. Um,
worksheet.
you know, time, date, session date, May, what's today, whatever today is, right? May 18th. Um,
Important people,
and then
important
if you had like, game
notes.
date, if that was important, right? Geography, where you guys are, country, town, or city, whatever. And here's a short paragraph, a few notes from the last session. And if you do a sheet, like something simple, every session, and keep that in like a log book, then not only will that serve well for the person who's been gone for 8 weeks, they can go skim over those 8 pages. But then if you guys need to go back and reference something, like we're doing here with creating a video archive of these conversations, you guys can go back and look at stuff. So I'll give you a simple example of that is, well, not really, but Friday night, the party was getting their ass kicked. Three of them were less than 0 hit points, three out of
Oh,
6. And
with your negative hit point
yeah,
thing.
and Artie looked at his character sheet and he had jotted down on his character sheet blue potion. I'm like, blue potion? Where the hell did you get that? Oh, I think we got it from this guy. We're going to, okay. So I flip back a few pages and I find it. Like, oh yeah, there was a blue potion and a green potion and 3 yellow potions. Like you
You
guys
guys
all
had
knew
that
that. You all
written
had it.
down?
I don't know why no one jotted it down, but you
Oh
guys had
goodness.
those 5 potions. Because, an adventuring party wouldn't leave that behind. Even if they didn't know what
No.
to do with it, they would have taken it.
Right.
So I
Yes.
said, all right, well, you guys got the three. Artie, who's negative hit points, has the blue, and okay, and you have the green, right? And someone took the yellow ones. So
Whatever. Yeah, you guys split it up evenly.
so if someone's taking notes, they would say, oh, well, so and so picked up the green potion, and so the other person had the blue potion, and so on. So if you need to go back and reference it because no one remembers, it's already there in a single 8.5 by
Little
11
compendium.
in a 3 ring binder to
Hmm.
reference. And when we do that on our Discord games, I always tell the note taker, hey, this is in room F24. So when you
We've
decide you
made
want to
Rustin
use
look
this,
back.
I can go back and easily look at F24 and know what the hell that was.
You've made Rustin do that a couple
Yeah.
times. That pendant of adaptation that I have.
Hmm.
You're like, where'd you guys get that again? Where'd you guys get that again?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the DM's not going to remember. Or I shouldn't say that.
No, you throw a bunch of loot at
The DM
us.
shouldn't be expected to remember that.
No, definitely not.
So, I mean, some DMs will, but I'm not one of those guys. So,
You got we have a lot of crap on our plate already. We have to deal with enough.
and all the more reason why I said you guys need a note taker, you need an accountant to keep track of all this because I'm not.
I have a bunch of those worksheets that you were just talking about. I have them somewhere. I'm trying to find a picture to give to you to put in.
And I am sure if we look online, someone has a template for that. But
Oh, I have a bunch of them.
I think that idea might be helpful for your group.
Well, and then that way it's just a spark notes. And if my little ADHD group can't keep their little brains in one place long enough, then just a quick worksheet would be more than enough to fill in somebody who hasn't been there for. And then that's what we're talking about, right? It's not just one session, it's
Right.
extended time.
Yeah. But
And that's
if
the
you had
gist.
a single sheet for one sessions of notes and printed out 25 copies in a 3 ring binder at the table, then someone, one player, consistent or not, can step up to the plate on any given night and say, "Okay, I'll be note taker tonight,"
And fill in one worksheet page.
and fill in the notes for that one session.
Right.
And then you
Facts.
have it in a 3 ring binder, the table book, if you will. And at any point, you guys can go back and reference stuff.
I feel like that isn't too much to ask for.
I don't think it's too much to ask, and I think that could be very helpful for the players to flip
Hmm.
through and refresh themselves from time to time, and remember where they found this. What happened over here. What was the name of that character again?
Hmm. All that fun stuff. What did that guy say?
Yeah,
Chase missed a rumor when you and Artie played about how the girl got taken by witches. Chase completely missed that rumor because he was role playing with somebody else while I was role playing with you, or he was telling somebody else something, and he was like, "Wait, when did that happen?" And I was like, "It happened when Artie and Keith were here." He was like, "I don't remember that." I was like, "Well, it happened. Here you go. Here's all of the information." Whereas that would have been in the binder
mm-hmm.
on a worksheet.
And then if it's in the binder, or let me rephrase that. If you work that binder, then it's up to puts that burden, if you will, puts the responsibility back to the players to take notes
And off of
so they can
me.
go back and rehash, and you don't have to remind them of all these little things. So that way, if they don't know, go check the table notebook. Hopefully someone took notes for you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this thing is never ending. I have a folder on my Pinterest and it just says nerd stuff. So anytime I find anything remotely nerdy, I just throw it in there. And there's stuff from Dungeons and Dragons, there's stuff for Warhammer in here, there's stuff for stupid video games in here, all in one giant mess. A lot of really cool maps. Does that count? They're Dyson maps. Like what you do, what you have for Tuesday? What's that map making place that you use for Tuesday?
Dungeon Scrawl.
Dungeon Scroll. Do you know if Dungeon Scroll is owned by Dyson?
I do not know.
That's his like art style. That guy. I can't remember his full name. But it's the same art style to Dyson. Dyson, looking at things in his specific art style, has that little scritchy scratch I drew with a pencil yesterday kind of look to it.
I'm looking here as well. Of course, a lot of these that I'm finding here are digital online.
Well, yeah, now they've made his. He
Oh,
does it
oh, oh.
like by hand, but
What's this? This might work.
oh, it popped me all the way back up to the top. Great, I love that for me.
All right, I'm downloading something. Let me take a look at this PDF. Character tracker, session notes. Okay. All right, so session notes.
Session note template.
Locations,
Yeah,
yeah, NPCs, monsters, treasure. Yeah, this is not that great.
this is session notes. NPCs encountered. To-do list, loot found, miscellaneous notes. And then at the top it says character name, campaign session, and date.
There you go, session notes, campaign title, date, cast. Let's see what this is.
There's a bunch of them. You just
Yeah,
Google
but I mean,
session
yeah,
notes.
but I think the bottom line is if you look at a dozen of these, you'll get a sense of what it is you want, and you can just make up a doc file or something for it. So I'm looking at one here, which is somebody's Google Doc that they made available. Um, Let me share this with you. Hang on, so you can see what I'm looking at.
Recap locations, key NPCs, enchantment and weather. Enrichment and weather?
All right, so all right, I'm showing you at least the one I'm looking at now. Hang on, let me go back so I can see it. So session date. Okay, so that's also good too. So you know who was there on a given night. Um, Quests, turns of fortune. Okay, setbacks. Um, NPCs met their names.
Anything
Questions.
remarkable and where you met them.
Yeah, session date. Okay, then just repeats again. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
over and over
so I
and
mean,
over and
like
over and
this
over.
this is to me this is not outstanding, right? Nor
Questions and
was
quotes.
nor was this here. If you're looking at my screen, this is the extent of it.
Yeah.
Character tracker, session notes, location, NPCs, monsters, and treasure. That's it. But I think if you look at a half a dozen or whatever dozen of these different things, you'll get a sense of what will work well for your group to create your own template.
That's the one that I just showed you. I just posted in the group in our chat.
Okay.
There's a if you just Google it, there's a bunch.
Yeah, I mean I did.
This one has
That's what
a
I did.
an encounter tracker. So if you end mid combat,
Um, I always
this
try.
other one that I'm looking at,
I always make sure I never
end
finish a
mid
session
combat.
in the middle of a combat. Yeah,
I know, right? It's awful.
that's bad. That's bad.
That's another one. Oh, this one. I've had this one before. This is NPCs and descriptions, session notes, items found, locations, special skills used, and then it says combat character initiative hit points. So there's another combat tracker on that one.
Yeah, but well, since the players
there.
don't really need a
In
Oh,
this
you talking
video,
about? You mean if you finish it in the middle of a combat? You mean?
Yeah, if you have to. I try not to, but sometimes it happens and Mike gives me the eyeballs and then I'm dead.
All right. So, well, that's a whole.
That's poor planning on my part
Yeah, I
is
was gonna
what
say
that
that's a
is.
whole
I
other
need
thing on
to
the
be
DM
better.
to not stop that combat.
Oh yeah. D&D notebook.
Okay, here we go. Player session note template. Hey, does anyone have a template for tracking? Um, so this one guy suggesting who's here, so characters and players, right? You want to know who's at the session. Was there any old business that you guys didn't finish on that game session that you might want to do on the next session? So like I asked you guys on a Discord game, hey, what do you guys think you want to do next session? Right? So you kind
Hmm.
of get a few preliminary thoughts of what the party wants to do next session. Major events that happened during that session. Um, any old unfinished business, notable moments and characters. But I'm also thinking um, a little broader as well in the template to be created of location, geography, like you said, who are and even if it's a running thing, even if you have a separate form for a cumulative running thing of who are your major characters that
Oh, and
you've
that could be in
encountered.
like the other side of the
Right. So,
notebook.
well, no, I'm thinking you have one page for the geography, right? Because that's not going to change too much. The geography and who are the major characters you run into, and then that's one form, like that's on the inside of the three ring binder, and that stays there, and one page, and then you have
All the
the
flippables.
and then you have the flippables, the template you made, which are the each individual weekly session. And that way, if
Right.
there's a notable character in session 4 and you're in session 20, you're trying to flip through 16 weeks and reading through 16 weeks of note to find that one guy's name and what he did. So the more important stuff you'd have cumulative on a single
Sean
sheet.
Von Zarovich.
All right, I'm going to close out some of these.
Irina Kolyana.
Okay.
There are main characters and there are not main characters. And even though the player is the main character, they're not because they're in a story. You know what I mean? So like there are actual main characters to the story that aren't players. But I agree. I like the idea of a notebook. That's a great compromise. Um, what you do with your NPC PC thing where people fill in for the NPCs,
Hmm.
like what we do on Tuesdays or what you were doing on Fridays. I really wish I could do, but I just don't think it makes sense to make. And it's usually only two characters. It's usually only Georgia, Rachel, or Yolvara, Peyton. Everybody else is highly consistent. I did it for Corey shipped Tiana's character, piloted Tiana's character because Tiana was only gone 1 week and she's an extremely consistent player.
Hmm.
So I just let Corey be Corey and Arecchio and Tiana's character Valeria. I let him play both.
So
Um,
that ties back into what I started with, right? What do you do when a player is not there? So we're talking what
I
we
just don't.
just been discussing is how do you bring the returning player up to speed? So what do you do if a player can't make it?
Well,
So
and how do you do it for role play too? How do you role play them back in?
so
If you don't do what you do, how do you do it another way?
okay.
That
Well,
too.
for those who don't know what I do, let me tell you what I do. So
Sorry.
on as I mentioned earlier, on my Friday night in-person game, the party has been established. We have 6 characters. I take those character sheets home with me every week, and then I return the next week to the game store. And as the players show up, I start giving out character sheets. That's how the party is consistent. Players are not. When a more traditional game for me in person, I have the same people every week. So I don't have to be taking home character sheets. The party still remains the same because it's the same players with the same characters, not a problem. But what happens if one of those guys can't make it? One of those players can't make it. So the way I handle that consistent group, which applies to my 2 Discord games, is the consistent same 4 people, 4 players every week. What happens if someone can't make it? So if they're only going to be out for a session or 2, I say, leave me your character sheet or upload it or what have you, And then for the session or two that you're missing, one of the other players will play that character for you so that the party remains consistent and is not at a deficit, and so that that character is still in the play, and since we use experience points, would still be involved in combat and exploration and treasure, and therefore would benefit from that in terms of experience points, and whatever gear might be found. So if they're going to be out for an extended period of time, that character will remain, and I will try to find a substitute player for
Oh
that
yeah,
character. So on Sunday night,
fill in.
one of the girls said, "Hey man, I might be out for the whole summer. The campaign's not going to be done. I want to come back. It's a work thing. I might be out for the whole summer." So I started looking for a substitute player. A substitute player who could potentially remain on board thereafter. But I was iffy if I wanted another player, but nonetheless. So my thought was, if I find a substitute player to fill in this character, or to play this character, filling in for the player, and the summer ends and that player returns, well, she would go back to playing her character because that's still her character that she created. And then if the substitute wanted to stay and we wanted them to stay, then I'd have to probably roll up a new character for them, um,
And see if they're
and
okay
work
with
with them
it
on
or
how they're going to kind of make their way into the party.
role
S-
play back into the
yeah,
party.
but in that individual game session, when a player can't make it and someone's filling in for that player, how do you role play that? Well, I think collectively between the DM and that player who's filling in, if the absent player has been there long enough, then they have developed that character enough, that character's personality, the character traits, that between the DM and
Motivation.
the fill-in player, they would know how that character would respond, with the
Right.
DM having the final say on that.
Right.
So, what are your thoughts on that, or how do you normally handle an absence, for a short absence, a week or two, in terms of players' character situation?
I usually role play that something happens to them, and then I role play that something happens to them again when they come back. I do it. I don't do experience is the other thing. I
Hmm.
don't do XP. I do it by milestone. The only problem is, well, what if they weren't there for the whole milestone? Well, do I care that much? I kind of not a little bit. It doesn't super bother me because it's not earned. It's just a milestone.
Right,
There can
and I get it, and that's a whole argument between experience points that you earn and milestone, right? But if they're not there for the vast majority, like we use the example of what if someone is out for like 2 months, right? And they miss that whole milestone.
well, then why shouldn't anyone do that?
So then at that point, I would say then that character shouldn't level up. Everyone else went from 4 to 5. You're still at 4. You're one level behind. It's really not a big deal. It's really not that big of a deal. If you have a party of 8 and 7 out of 8 are level 5 and you got one that's level 4, that has that much of an impact, I think, at the end of the day.
Well, and so
It's
I
not gonna
could
make a
talk
difference.
you could talk to them on the side and be like, "Hey, you haven't been here for a while. Everybody's gonna level up soon. Is it okay if you don't level up? You haven't been here." And if they say no and pitch a bitch, then I guess they don't belong at the table.
I'm glad you said that, because my first thought in there was like, Julie, why you even have that discussion? Why are you asking them that? Like, just as the DM, you
Just
say
to prepare them.
this is the way it's going to be. You weren't
Well,
here. Your
yeah.
character didn't level up, right? But that's
I would do it on a prepared so that they don't have a meltdown at the table. But
well, if they have a meltdown, anyway. Um, So, yeah, so I agree with that. Like, hey, you weren't here. You missed significant enough to
hey,
you're
I'm
not
just
going to
gonna
level up,
warn you,
right?
this is gonna happen. Love you, bye. You know?
And without getting to that's a whole other conversation, right? Milestone versus experience points, but you weren't there for that, right? So, or okay, so that's how you normally handle that. If they're out long enough, they're not going to level up. But what if they only miss a session or two?
Well, then I assume they would just level up with the party whenever the party levels up.
Okay.
I would just give it to them. Like for this last
Um,
session, Rachel wasn't here, but Peyton was. So I role played that Rachel got lost in the mist, and the mist finally spat her back out. So maybe she had her own experience where she fought monsters in the mist by herself, survival experience, whatever. I could role play that she had some kind of character growth inside of the mist by herself. Um, and then Peyton ended the session she was there last falling asleep at the table. I just left her at the table. I just let her stay asleep, and she's theoretically just with Ismark at his house, and he's the mayor. His house is kind of safe. She's in a safe spot. So I just said that she's just having a sleepover at Ismark's until she feels better, and when she wakes up, Ismark's gonna point her in our general direction.
All right, that's for your story, that's for your role play.
Yeah,
But
that's how I role played it.
but for from the mechanical side, that character is absent for the session in which the player is absent, and the party is essentially is deficient that character for that session.
I sadly have so many characters, it kind of doesn't matter.
Well, yes, you do have a large group, but just the same, that player who's absent and subsequently their character though is absent or deficient, someone else, another player is going to come in and fill that seat. So as for the party is still going to be the same size, plus or minus one,
Mhm,
still going to be the same
mhm.
size. Um, but if that were not the case, if you had a smaller group, you only had 5 players,
I would probably
you
do the
know.
character thing. I would probably either pilot it myself because I would then have more legs because I have no legs right now because I'm DMing for not 8 other people. If I was DMing for 5 and one of my players left, for me to pilot a character, and that's not really pilot, it's me just character here, cast spell, and I wouldn't do any role play or anything like that. I would just kind of like do like what I hate to pull in the big boys, but like what Critical Role does, where they're just like a mute NPC and they say things if spoken to
Hmm.
that are just generic and they cast spells, but they're not really there. They're there, but they're not really there because
Yeah,
the DM has other stuff to do
correct.
unless
So,
another player wants to pilot them.
yeah.
And I will give them the opportunity. If they don't feel comfortable with it, then I'll do it. Is what it is. With a table of 8 motherfuckers, I just pretend they don't exist and I keep my train moving.
Yeah, because and with your pool, as we talked about, roughly 10 players, 8 show up every week, right? So if one player can't
Sometimes
make it,
7.
if one player can't make it, someone else is going to be there. So in the end, for the way your table is designed or set up, it's not going to have an impact on the party.
Right.
It's not because another character just showed up. So not a problem, but yeah, that's always a problem, and that can be a killer as well for D&D groups is inconsistency, right? Whether it be inconsistency of players, which really ties into scheduling, because two of the 5 people can't make it on this date, so we'll play on this date instead, and that then it becomes that vicious circle, that very
The number
steep
one killer.
slide downhill that's going to kill the group. And that's
And
something
that's why I like
I,
the
I
pool.
very much focus on. Um, now, you people say all the time, right? Well, you can't have a game without the DM. Well, the DM can't have a game without players. It goes both
Right.
ways, right? But there are far more players than there are DMs, so the DM essentially has control. And any given game session can't happen without the DM. You need at least one DM and one player. So it can't happen without the DM. So I, as the DM, I chose the day and time of the week that worked for me. And then I went and I found my players that
Yeah,
had that
players
same
came to me.
availability. So we're not changing our availability week to week. We're not skipping weeks because too many people can't make it. It's the same thing. It's every other Sunday at 5 o'clock. It's every Tuesday at 6:30.
Before I dedicated to a big boy campaign, I ran, and even before Fandelver, I ran one shots, back to back to back to back one shots that I had already played previously. So I knew as a DM what would happen. And there were only like 10 to 12 pages, and maybe we finished and maybe we didn't. But the people who came back and back and back and back for one shots, I said, well, now that you guys have been here for a couple weeks and I see your faces every time, I said, do you guys want to try and play like a little baby campaign? And they were all like, yes, let's do it. And so I was like, okay, let's try out Fandelver. Fandelver is the very, very beginning campaign. It's pretty small. It wasn't a lot for me to prep for. I didn't prep for it at all, to tell you the truth, because I suck. Um, no, I thought I took it for granted is what I did. I thought it was just that baby easy that I would just be able to, which I found out was bad because I messed up some story. Anyway, and then when Fandelver started happening, I got another consistent level up at that point because then it was a long-term campaign, and so then people were staying even more, and I had even more player consistency. And then I was like, okay, well, we're good. Let's just start an actual campaign. So it was
So
like a
so on Friday, I have one player who's proven to be inconsistent, and not like in a bad way, but he's inconsistent. I think because D&D to him is, oh, yeah, it's Friday night, maybe I'll go play, kind of thing, and not like that
got
level of
free time.
right, and not that kind of like level of commitment, if you will, to the game or to the other players to the party. Like if he doesn't have anything better to do, or then he's going to do that. And that's okay, and that's he's there obviously a little more for the social aspect than the game itself, whereas I think others of us, not all of us, are there for the game, for the enjoyment of the game and the group. And I'm not sure where
And
I
the
was going with
social
that.
aspect
Don't know where I was
and the
going with that.
friendship along the way. Um, that it's okay to have inconsistent players, but maybe to not put them in pivotal roles.
No, what were we talking about just before that?
Me having a pool of players, and then I said that
Oh no, the one shots. Okay, so that's where I was going with that.
one shots, a bunch of one
So
shots, leveling up.
so the I think as you if you have, which is what you experience, if you have a consistent campaign that's going to last for months, people are going to be more likely to commit. They're either going to commit to that or they're not, right? Obviously, but they're going to commit to that because they want to see it to the end. They're getting involved. They have a certain amount of skin in the game, and they want to kind of see it through. With a one shot, well, it
Story.
only lasts for a week or two,
Mm-hmm.
and then you start again, and you start again, you start again. So if I miss it for a few weeks, it's not a big deal because I'm not really missing anything. It's not an ongoing story. It's not an
No, because
ongoing
nothing is
game, right?
happening. Yeah.
Um, so I think when you have a campaign as opposed to a one shot, you're more likely to get players that are going to stick around. So how it worked out for me at the Friday night game in person at the game store is Julie was taking a break. She was in between campaigns. Well, I shouldn't say she took a break because she kind of didn't. She was in between campaigns, and her group was not playing 5e on that Friday night. So I said, "Oh, well, if anyone wants to try 1e, I'm going to put together a one shot
Oh,
for 1e," which was whatever 2.5 weeks, whatever it was, and that got some people's interests. I found a few new players as a result, or a couple of new players as a result of that, and it got people a chance to try it. And one of them absolutely loves 1E now and will not go back to 5E. And I picked up a couple of freshies, a couple of people who have never played before, and they're liking it. But in fairness to them, or in fairness to 5E, if all you know is 1E and you like it, then you may not know anything about 5E. Maybe you would like 5E better. But either way, I took that
that
opportunity.
happened to another one of your characters,
Who's that? What are you talking about?
Peyton.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Peyton
So,
started with one.
yeah, so the complete opposite. So um, Julie was in between campaigns. I was running something 1E, and I found Peyton on Facebook. We chatted a little bit. I said, come check it out. She did. She had a good time. He's like, yeah, but I want to check out 5E. And she sat in with Julie, or started chatting with Julie, and she converted to 5E. Um, but the,
The
the
other
whole
way
the whole
around.
point is finding players, keeping players, and that consistency in them. Um, and we kind of this conversation kind of has evolved, isn't it? We talked about what do you do when a player's gone. Now we're talking about finding players and keeping players. But so what happens
Well,
if
it's
if a
table management and table etiquette.
well, that's two different things now, and that's a whole other conversation, table etiquette. Um, but we got enough time. We can talk about table etiquette. I mean, I even have a PDF on my OneDrive for my players on etiquette. I don't know if
I
you've
don't
looked at
think
that.
that's what we said at the beginning. What were we calling this? And I said table etiquette, and you're like, eh.
Yeah,
What did we call it in the beginning of this video?
I don't know. I said I was going to come up with a
Table
title,
player
player
player management.
player management, I guess. Anyway, so table etiquette, right? Hmm. Show up on
Table
time.
etiquette different.
Show
Yeah.
up on time. Be ready.
Pay attention.
Pay attention. Well, it all kind of a lot of this ties into what makes for a good player, or
Interact.
conversely, what makes a bad player. But table etiquette, like you have to know when to speak up for your character. I don't know. That's a whole. I don't know. All right.
That's
Let me see.
a little funny.
Sometimes I'm not good at collecting my thoughts on the spot like that. So
Oh,
hang
this is a
on.
really good one.
Let me go here. Let me pull up Discord. Not Discord. OneNote. OneDrive. OneDrive.
Dun, 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 dun,
Works.
dun, 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 dun.
All right.
I'm
So
sending you a bunch of worksheets just to let you know.
player resources.
Why you can only see
Daily
my
search. Here
forehead.
you go. Yeah. So player and DM etiquette is in the players or my Discord I have for the players. So let's take a look at that.
I was about to say, did you want to share screen it?
Yeah, well, I have it on YouTube. I will share screen it with you as well. Of course,
Whatever.
you can just open up Discord. You can open up OneDrive.
My own OneDrive link.
It's in the
Link accessible.
it's in the players resources folder.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so let's see. There's four pages of this. The, I'm just going to read
Oops.
the headings here. The DM is always right. Have your supplies ready. Character sheets, pen, paper, etc. Seating arrangements. Know your character. Where's your equipment? Role playing one character. Playing two characters. Distractions. Don't cheat. And respect your hosts. Those are the headings on the etiquette.
Oh, and you
And
didn't even like make these. You got them from somebody.
yeah, I got it from dragonfoot.org.
So these aren't just Keith specific.
They are not. They are not
It's not
my nuances or my pet peeves. They are
right.
for real. So I gotta put a link to OneDrive. I guess I could even link the original, which is dragonfoot.org, and somewhere in there. Let me try that now. Is there a way to search? Search.
Oh, is it like a blog?
Maybe. I don't
Yeah.
really know too much about this. I just at some point along my journey here the past 2 years, I found this one etiquette thing. See, when I search for etiquette though, nothing comes up. Player and DM etiquette. Oh, there we go. There we go. There. Oh. Dragonfoot map making. How to choose your equipment. I don't know. I'm not seeing. So I'll have to provide a link to my OneDrive for that because I'm not finding it on their own website at the moment. All right. Um, so yeah. So there's table etiquette. note taking, which we talked about. So doing a 3-ring binder for note taking. You'll just have to come up with a couple templates of your own for that.
I send you like 80.
And what else did you say? You said etiquette and what else?
Table etiquette, player management
Player management. Okay. So, of course,
is what I
we're,
said,
we're
but
approaching
we're
time.
really just talking about like how to handle when a player leaves, open tables versus closed tables, how to handle open tables versus closed tables, how to handle a really good player that you like that's absent for a while, and how do they catch up. We talked a little bit about note taking for that reason and
Hmm.
keeping a really cool binder that has a lot of like session details in it, that we can like hash out and figure out. And I think I'm gonna do that when I get off the phone with you, and I'm gonna make one for the entirety of the campaign, and then I'm just gonna have everybody else fill it out indefinitely until we're done. And I did all of the hard work, and I don't have to do all the hard work ever again. I bet
And
you I could get Chase to do it. To tell you the truth, if I was like, Chase, if I hand this to you, will you write everything down for me? I bet you he would. I don't wanna give him too much because he's starting to DM a Pathfinder campaign.
all
I
right,
don't wanna put too much on his plate,
but
but
here's my
I could
thought.
ask.
Here's another thought on that too. Those notes need to be done that night at the table.
Well, so do I start them now and not do any of the older ones? Do I do a really quick bark notes of all the older ones
Yeah, I think I would do that. I would just do a very broad campaign to now, very broad summary, and that's
and
that's
then start the
that
worksheet?
that's I'll say that's page one. Page two is the fixed one that we talked about. That here's your major characters, here's your major events, and then
That
you
have
have
happened
and
to
then
this date.
yeah, and then you have your
Yeah.
weekly one, your
Mhm.
weekly one, yeah. So for
That the
you,
player fills out.
yeah, and the player a player needs to fill it out that night during session because that binder needs to go home with you every week.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely 100%.
Got
So
some other
it needs
side.
to be, again, just some simple notes. It's just a few fill in the blanks and a small 2 or 3 sentences of what has happened, right? And if they do it throughout the session, throughout the night, throughout the session, it's not that hard.
No,
But yeah, I understand your interest in Chase for that, but he and Corey
a
both are
lot.
also doing a lot during the game to kind of aid you. So
Already. Yeah,
yeah.
so maybe giving it to somebody who's not doing as much would help to even out the workload.
Well, then again, Julie, you say, here's this binder I created. This is where I created it. Who would like to take notes tonight?
Oh, open.
Yeah,
And
and
whoever wants to take
and
it
that
takes
way
it.
it's not the same person every week that kind of has that on their shoulders. It can
Right,
rotate.
right.
So
What if nobody wants to do it?
then you say, oh, I guess you guys don't have any notes. Like this is
Session
yeah.
session 26.
So
Nothing.
this is a tool that you have created for the benefit of the players. If they don't want to do it,
Especially since the perfect example just happened and I had to sit there and spoon feed it all to Rachel, when if I had the binder, I could just hand her the binder and she could have read the binder on her own and the game would have just gone. And I would have been gaming
right?
instead of explaining to her for an hour what happened,
Yep.
or a half an hour, or however long it
And
took.
she
And it's not her fault. She had shit going on. I don't blame her,
and
but it was the only option I had.
and as you're playing, she can take 10 or 15 minutes to scroll through what's been going on.
Mark note through,
Yeah.
yeah.
But if they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. Again, that's on them. This is a tool that you are creating to help them. It's not going to help you. You're not really going to benefit from it. It's for them.
Right.
And then if someone doesn't show up, they've been gone for 2 months. Here's my 5 minute summary. Ask the other players.
Enjoy your spark notes.
Because even as an example, when we rehash on Tuesday night, and I do the same on Sunday night, the notes are now there for everyone to review. Prior to having a designated note taker, I would rehash with everyone from my notes as to what had happened. Okay,
Before it starts, before the campaign
but
starts.
before we start for the night,
Yeah.
and before we did, I would turn it over to the group, or I would ask the group, "What did I miss? Is there anything else anyone would feels the need to add because I missed it, or maybe it wasn't important from my perspective, but from your perspective as the player, it was important, and you want to make sure we rehash that or we discuss that. So I turn it over to them, and now that we have the notes, I still do the same thing in a slightly different way. All the notes are there. I read them ahead of time when we first start. Sometimes I'll skim them over with everyone and say, okay, yep, remember this, remember this, remember that. Is there anything that Russin missed that we feel the need to add?
Sometimes I do that when he posts. I'll read
Yes.
it as soon as
Yep.
he posts it, and then I'll put a little ding, 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 ding.
So, and you can do the same thing with that. And then, so if they don't want to take notes, that's on them. But when the notebook is there, then my next question is, at the beginning of the next session, do you rehash last week's session for them? Are you going to assume that no one has any questions or anything of note? Or you just say, wait, man, you guys got your binder. You can review it. You know, it's there for
I
you to
set
review.
up. So when I get to the shop, I still set up. And usually when I set up, I just go over everything really quick. I do last time on Dragon Ball Z. And I go over really quick what happened the session before, and I do it really fast. And sometimes players will chime in and be like, "Oh, and we did this," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, you guys did the thing," because I forgot. Um, which is definitely something that I am used to because it takes me time to pull out all of my books and things and my dice and my DM screen. I got a new dice bag. Oh, sorry, that's definitely not part of this conversation. I will send you a picture of my new dice bag after our phone call. Anyway, I'm kind of used to doing a really quick Spark Note summary, and I guess I still could. It could even be more abridged because there will be a more detailed note in the binder. And I'm gonna say, here, this is guys, this is what happened. I said, you guys want anything more specific? Feel free to look at the binder.
Yep. Yeah, I do. I kind of like that idea. I hadn't thought about um, a binder, although we do have notes, and I've used a note taker here in both my games. But
For in
and
person, a binder would be cool.
yeah, and I think on Sunday night
A logbook.
when and sometimes I'll even have the note taker rehash, even though it took notes and posted notes on Discord for everyone to review. I also have to recognize that maybe someone didn't review the notes, right? Maybe they didn't go back and read it. So
Actually didn't read it.
so sometimes I'll have that note taker rehash the notes for us verbally,
Yeah.
out
Hey,
loud.
take it away.
So that way, maybe as she's reading it, it chimes a thought for another player, either a thought for something to do tonight or something that wasn't discussed in the notes that person feels is noteworthy, or what have you. So, one form or another, every session gets rehashed before the next, for me. Whether it's in written form or verbal discussion, it always gets rehashed, or both.
And you're smart and you put it on everybody else. I didn't.
Yeah, but
My
it,
inhuman recall.
it's funny. It's funny you said that because you and I had talked about that previously about assigning tasks to the players, right? One was a caller, one was note taker, one was map maker, one was the accountant. I believe those are the four.
I don't have James as the accountant because he usually keeps track of loot. But I think it's actually like morphed over to Nee because Nee is a loot goblin. His character's a little loot goblin. She steals a bunch of stuff all the time and shoves it in her pockets. Um, and then Caller, I've kind of gotten rid of
Hmm.
because I pay too much attention to what they're saying when I should probably be doing other things and I just can't help it. So I've just gone back to around the table instead of a caller. Um, And then Map Maker Chase does sometimes. He has that cool app on his phone that he plugs and chugs into. But we haven't gotten into like a dungeon yet. They've kind of been above ground for a long time, and they've just been in the town. So they haven't had the need to make a map. I guess they could make a map of town, but
And if you have a session notebook or
it would
binder,
have a map.
then you don't have to assign the role of note taker. It's assigned to the
No,
table.
right.
Here it is. Yeah, and just
To
the
the binder. The binder is the
and
note
just the saying right to
taker.
the binder, and just the saying if there are so then Strahd letters that they find can go
Could go
in
in
the
the binder.
notebook in the binder.
Yeah. All of the leaflets and
Yep,
handouts and
yep, yep.
things.
So it's all in one place.
We'll have to talk about because they are going to a location that I will need some handouts for.
Okay.
Okay.
Now I have something similar I use for my in-person game. It's not a note-taking binder, but I have a binder, three-ring binder for the table. In that binder, I have my house rules printed out. I have like a combat matrix. I have a couple maps in there for them.
Ooh, I could put the combat matrix in the note binder too.
Um,
Ooh.
I'm trying to think what else is in there. Hold that thought. I'll tell you.
I know what binder you're talking
Hold
about.
that thought. Hold
I've
that
seen
thought.
that. Him just scooting into the ether is great.
All
It's
right.
like you're behind a theater screen. You just
So
disappear.
I made the binder for that
Yeah, I know
specific
what
campaign.
you're.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in here, I have the combat matrix. I have the player's rules.
Oh, the top 10 players rules.
Yeah, the what's 20? Yeah, like never split the party.
Yeah,
Always
yeah,
check
yeah,
for
yeah.
traps. Da da da.
Don't go in the water.
Yeah, more anecdotal. House rules are non-weapon proficiencies I have in here because it's not in one of the books that we have at the table, so I made sure I included that in here. I know you don't have that, but that's not really the point. I do have a couple maps. I have a map of Saltmarsh for them and a map of the region, and that's
Oh,
what's
I'm
in the
not allowed.
binder. But it's all in the binder for the players at the table every week. And so you could kind of do the same thing or kind of combine that with a the note taking.
Right, and add in some other supplemental
Yeah,
information. I could
yeah,
put the no initiative combat matrix in there.
yep. So that's I think that might be a valuable tool for you guys.
What do you call? There's a name for what this is called. This a binder like that where it just has like generalized information in it. A reference, I guess. Just a table
Table
referencer.
reference.
Yeah, something like that.
So I'm just trying to think what else you might be able to, would be of interest in putting in here for you. Oh, so have you thought about this? You mentioned earlier if a player's out for a week or two, Corey had filled in for that character or for that player running that character.
Yeah, she was gone for 1 week. Corey just filled in for one
Right.
session.
So does that mean on that week you had 9 characters?
No, because I don't think she was. Because I don't think Rachel was there either. So it was
Okay.
no Tiana, no Rachel.
Okay, okay. Because the thought I had was that you might have had 9 characters.
I now have 9 characters if we count Irina, but Irina's like half a character. I
Yeah,
have
but
eight and a half.
she's an NPC.
Yeah, she is a glorified NPC.
So, okay.
I told them that she can kind of do. She has like a rapier, and she can do like a cool like parry, where she can like do a cool dodge with her sword and like parry the attack. She also has access to a healer's kit, so she can do very minimal first aid.
So, something else you could consider in the binder is like a quick reference of certain common things, like different effects. What effect is stunned or blinded or
Oh, conditions.
conditions? Yeah. So
An appendix.
a condition sheet, if you can fit it like onto a sheet or two,
I think it's
a
just
page
one
or
sheet.
two.
Yeah.
That'd be
Same with cover. Cover rules would be cool in there.
that'd be a quick reference for the group. And that way, essentially, you condense down the DMG and the Player's Handbook to 3, 4, 5 pages of stuff that you guys would use every week, right? And that way,
Mm.
it's a quick reference for someone. So,
Quick reference,
and
yeah.
and
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 that falls under session notes. Session notes is a quick reference.
and um, even if you don't use it for that purpose, it's there. So when someone opens the binder to look at notes, they're going to see that there. And they're going to see it every week. And over time, maybe, just maybe, someone's going to
Right.
remember the effects of those conditions.
Hmm. A lot of them know it by heart anyway,
So,
but
well, I mean, whatever it is, conditions,
Corey and
concealment,
Chase know it by heart.
conditions, concealment, cover, whatever it is, the content you put in there, over
Right.
time, they can learn that.
A new player sheet, so it's like, what do you do during your turn, or what can you do during your turn?
Yeah, something for game mechanics or what have you. But yeah, but the bottom line is I think a table binder will be helpful, if for no other reason than those session notes that the players will take. All right, any concluding thoughts on this undefined topic?
Player management and general reference.
Player and table management? It's really not table management though. How to deal with transient players and player absences.
Yeah, I guess that could be more specific. My final touch is that I'm gonna get off this computer and make a binder.
Um, all right, so binders, you can get, this is a half inch, I think, or 1 inch. Get it at
They're
Walmart
so
for
cheap.
get it at Walmart for a few bucks, $3 or something. You can get your sheet protectors at Wal. So you can put together the binder and sheet protectors for under $5.
If you have kids in school, you probably already bought them for kids in school, and you probably have 86 of them lying around like
And
I
I
do.
think Dollar Tree might
It's
even
my
sell some super cheap sheet protectors, because I think that's what one of my players has, because they seem super thin.
They split really easy. If you get the cheaper ones, they'll split.
Correct. Yes, I agree. You get what you pay for. That's why I didn't go to the Dollar Tree. At least I started at Walmart, and the Walmart ones seem to be doing okay.
Ah, that's great. I love that.
So, oh,
Oh,
and
clerical
and
obsession
you
unlocked.
you had one earlier today, which I think was our last recording. But let me give my shout out to Nee for my chocolates.
Yeah, I
Th
have.
Thank you, Nee.
Well,
Yep, 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 yep. I will
trying
indulge.
not to
I
throw
will
the
indulge
label.
for Nee right now on
These
camera.
got melted in my car, so they're very amalgamated chocolate balls. Which
Mm.
was why, in the middle of recording, I was like scraping it against my teeth.
Thank you, Nee. All right, Julie. So we good on this topic?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was
All right,
fun.
all right, boys and
Couple
girls.
weird things.
Peace out. We'll make some more videos in the coming weeks.
Deuces.
Peace.